Hey Tribe, in this video I will briefly discuss the importance of electrolytes. Remember this, electrolytes are not optional, and I will repeat this several times. Let's set a basis. Sodium and potassium regulate our metabolism and balance each other. Magnesium regulates our nervous system and muscle. When one does not consume processed foods and excessive amounts of carbohydrate, the body is not able to retain sodium, and hence there's a constant need in consuming adequate amounts of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, as we use those minerals constantly. If we do not consume enough, we will experience low blood pressure effects from sodium, and if we go really low on potassium, we will experience very high blood pressure. That will result in headaches, sleepiness, dizziness, hunger, bloating, and yes, fainting is also a thing, and it might happen. Magnesium deficiency will cause muscle cramps, bad sleep, and nervousness. Now, you might say, I have never experienced that, and most of us did not. And this is due to the fact that most of us consume modern Western diet, which is very rich in sodium. So almost any processed foods you consume, you get some sodium. And I'm sure if you look at the package of almost anything you have, even it's a sweet cake from some supermarket, you will find sodium in there. In addition, due to the very high amount of glucose in diet, our insulin levels are constantly high, which prevents the kidneys from clearing the sodium. Hence, what happens is we load on sodium all the time, and it does not leave the system very efficiently. That is also the reason for hypertension being #1 reason for hospitalization for people whose age is over 65. And a little factoid here, the #1 reason for hospitalization for people whose age is between 18 and 65 is obesity. When we stop consuming processed foods, we stop supplementing the body with sodium, and when we cut the carbohydrate, we lower insulin to normal levels, which allows kidneys to start clearing the sodium from the system, which is how it's supposed to work. But when that happens, we become deficient in all major electrolytes. Most people will start experience from the second or third day of low carbohydrate effects of that. Now, to replace sodium, potassium, and magnesium we must supplement this to prevent hyponatremia, which is sodium deficiency, and hypokalemia, which is potassium deficiency, and magnesium to keep the central nervous system and muscles in check. Again, this is not optional. If you don't use supplement, you will suffer. And by the way, this is also known as a famous keto flu, which is simply electrolytes deficiency. Also, if you ever have experienced a hangover, it is exactly the same thing. And this is why pickle juice helps. It's full of sodium. Hope this is not too much to take it all at once. Do not make mistakes. Do not fight it. If you're on a low-carb diet and you are feeling thirsty or tired before sundown or have headaches, dizziness, weakness, nausea, you are deficient in sodium and you must start supplementing immediately. And keep the levels such that you do not experience any of this ever again. If you do, keep on adding more. Let's talk about the numbers a bit. 5,000 milligrams a day is a baseline, but it might be not enough for many people. The more active you are, the warmer it is outside, the more you will need to supplement. Now, suggested way of intake for the minimal amount is like that. Typical serving of salt is 1/4 of a measuring teaspoon, which is normally between 350 and 580 milligrams of sodium. And hence, aim for at least half a teaspoon of salt 5 times a day. And this is the minimum. The way I personally do that, I consume my dose by mouth with just enough water to take it down. Do not use too much water, since you will dilute the sodium in lower concentration, rendering intake useless. I personally take 1 dose on wake up, 1 after breakfast, 1 between the meals, 1 with lunch, and then I take more doses every 2-3 hours, finishing with a dose of probably 2 teaspoons an hour before bed. This is how I sleep well, which is also when you're supposed to take your 400 milligrams of magnesium an hour before bed. As for potassium, as long as you consume a lot of green leafy vegetables, avocado, and meat, as I suggest in our program, you will not be deficient in potassium. And let's repeat this again. This is not optional. And if you take the 5,000 milligrams, which is 5 grams, by the way, the minimum, and still experience the symptoms, you have to add. I personally consume 17,000 milligrams, which is 17 grams, in addition to what I have with food. One tip, and that's a funny one. Be careful not to take all of it at once. Since you're no longer able to hold excessive sodium, your body becomes extremely efficient in regulating your minerals. And if you take too much, it will result in almost immediate diarrhea. Make sure to spread your intake as suggested. On this note, I will once again repeat, electrolytes are not optional. Make sure to ask any questions in the Q&A thread in the group. Have a great day and see you in the program. Let's go.